Hi again, it's the Wednesday's Child podcast where we get to talk to you about all things body image, eating disorders, and all those kind of trials and tribulations that people experience when they're battling back from a devastating mental health journey, which may or may not relate to all these matters of body image and eating disorders. And as you know, sometimes we get the most amazing and inspirational guests to join us on the podcast. And I'm really pleased to say I've got somebody joining me today who has become quite noisy on the social media feeds that I follow of late, and many of you may have heard of her, seen her tweets, and in particular seen a lot more noise that she's been creating since the very recent findings in the report by the Health and Social Care Committee. And this was all about what's the world doing about the issues of weight and editing and all the effects that it has on young people and indeed adults. So very pleased to say that joining me today is Suzanne Samaka. Hello Suzanne, how are you?
Hey Debbie, thank you for having me.
I have to
I'm
say
very well, thank you.
That's the first time I've said your surname out loud. Have I said it right? Samaka, is that right?
Yeah, Samaka, yeah, normally pronounced Samaka, that's great.
Okay.
It's not the easiest one to guess.
Excellent. So if somebody's going to find you online, they may well have heard of you with the hashtag honesty about editing. Is that right? The campaign that you launched. Now, I know that this campaign idea, honesty about editing, has been at the sort of front and centre of what the Health and Social Committee report was last week. But as you've said to me, you were actually already on that bandwagon some time ago, and you were kind of kicking that along, telling people we need to do something about this. This is a problem. This is feeding into people's low self-esteem. This is creating issues around eating disorders. So can you go back a little bit and tell me why? Why does someone like you get really hot under the collar and say, I need to do something about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I go back to the beginning, so about 5 years ago, one of our family members was diagnosed with anorexia. And it was the first time I've been exposed to eating disorders. I was one of those people that was completely ignorant to it, had absolutely no idea about eating disorders or how they affect the people suffering, but also the everybody around that person. Our family members spent periods of time in inpatient clinics. And when visiting them, I think what absolutely blew my mind was how full to bursting these places were. And they were under 18, so it wasn't adolescent unit, but with adolescent girls and boys. And as a parent, an auntie, member of society, I just remember thinking something has to be done about this. And I'm not against social media at all. I think it's absolutely powerful when used in the right way. What I'm against is the lack of transparency. And then I think that many young people and adults, it's certainly not just young people, and it doesn't discriminate at all. It's not just girls or women, it's men and boys, and a worryingly growing rate as well. I just thought something has to be done because there's a huge lack of self-esteem and comparison. Everybody is seeing these highlight reels of people's lives and then looking back and thinking, well, my life doesn't look like that, or my body doesn't look like that. And that's one thing, but I think when you add in digital editing, where that person doesn't look like that either, you're comparing yourself to something that can't be achieved and is completely unobtainable.
Yeah. And I think, fortunately, we have had some celebrities come out in recent years, haven't we, saying, I will refuse now. I will not be on the cover of a magazine once I have been edited to looking nothing like what I actually exist as, and I think that's a great thing. But you're right, when we look at highly influenced young people and adults, and we can talk about, aren't younger people more impressionable, but even as adults, however kind of worldly wise we are, particularly this time of year, you see photos of someone saying, oh, look at me on the beach in on my Instagram post, I'm posting this lovely happy family holiday, and we can all get caught up in, oh my God, that world is real. But we all sort of deep down, we know there's an inherent kind of fakeness to it. It's a facade. But I think when it comes into body image and reflections of people's physicality, it's ever more dangerous, isn't it? And I think that's why it's so important that the work that the Health and Social Care Committee has been doing on this, and it's now talking about pushing forward with. Did you, when you saw that report come out, did you feel relieved? Did you feel kind of emboldened by it? Or do you feel angry it's taken so bloody long? What do you feel?
Well, so when I started the campaign, I then found out that there's an MP called Dr. Luke Evans, who is brilliant, and he's an ex-GP who's now an MP, and he's pushing, and he has been pushing for a number of years, but it was thrown out of Parliament for various parliamentary processes, for labelling of digitally edited content. And the reason for that is because he's seen firsthand as a GP the effects on people's body image and mental health when comparing themselves to this idealistic, unobtainable image.
So when you talk about labelling of those images, Suzanne, are we saying that any image, a bit like at the moment when a celebrity is endorsing something because they are paid to do that advert, they have to now say legally, they have to say on their post, this is a paid for post. Are we saying that there would be something of that nature about edited images?
Very similar, yeah. So that's exactly what we're asking for. So obviously there'll be a cutoff. So if it's myself with my 100 followers, that's probably not going to count. But if I had 100,000, then absolutely there's a responsibility and certainly an influence there. That there'll be a benchmark of people that have to do this. So absolutely what we're campaigning for is asking for that label of some sort or kite mark that people know that person might look amazing, but that person actually doesn't look like that in real life. So, and to be honest, for me, I'm not against editing. If people want to edit their photos, absolutely fine. Again, going back to the transparency about it, for me, it kind of falls in the bucket of plastic surgery. It's your body, you can do what you like. It's not for me to say what you can and can't do. But I think there's certainly a responsibility that just needs to provide a level of transparency around what
kind of
people are
honesty
seeing.
and integrity that comes with it, isn't it? Rather than letting the world think.
Yeah.
In the same way, you know, I work in the world of PR and marketing, and I think in the world of advertising, it wouldn't be right to say that somebody's hair looks miraculously like this just because of the shampoo they've used, when actually the truth is it's been kind of stylized with this product and this product. And so you get the small print, don't you, underneath these adverts that kind of have to tell the truth. And I think it stands to reason that we should need to be more open and transparent, in particular if these small changes, which actually are they that small, but these things add up to aiding the ability we have to support young people's self-esteem and their ability to fight the demons, that the kind of mental health issues that we sit here on the podcast and talk about all the time. They are definitely perpetuated to some degree by the external influences that these people see. And I would absolutely be on your page, and I say this often, about social media is a blessing and a curse, because Wednesday's Child connects with a community of people experiencing eating disorders and supports them through social media. So I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say social media is all wrong. It exists for a reason. Used in the right way, it's a good thing, but used in the wrong way, it's incredibly harmful. So these kind of rules changes, just kind of the ways in which people are allowed to engage with social media would just be so transformative. So where are we today after this report, after the kind of conversations you've had a year on from when you launched this? Are we further forward? Are we going to see this? Is that my Christmas present this year? Are we going to see, you know, by the end of this year, an announcement that says edited photos will have to be labelled as such?
I think it's fair to say we are a lot further forward than we were previously. And to answer your question, when I saw the report come out, I did breathe a sigh of relief that finally people are starting to realise the statistics, the growth in eating disorders and anxiety and depression, and linking the two together, and trying to put some efforts in place to relieve that. But I think we have to be realistic. Anything in terms of legislation takes a very long time, which is why, as part of the Honesty About Editing campaign, yes, I'm trying to get legislation changed, but I'm also trying to create awareness around what editing can look like, how easy it is. I've recently set a TikTok up that shows pictures that are before editing and after editing, to try and also provide that awareness for people, and it is taking that responsibility yourself. And I've done it recently in the past year or so. I've changed the accounts that I follow, the social media that I look at, and taking a real conscious decision to think about, is this content that I'm consuming helpful to me? If it's not, I'm getting rid of it. And what I've noticed is you don't miss it. It's hard to do. It's hard to press unfollow. And even if it's friends or contacts that you've known for a long, long time, it's hard to press that mute button or unfollow. But once you do, you don't miss it at all. And actually, you do realise that you're a heck of a lot happier on the back of it.
Yeah, I think that we've talked a lot on this podcast about one thing that people can do is kind of audit their social channels and think, am I following things that aren't really helping me? And sometimes in the eating disorders community, we talk about people that might have a more toxic narrative, that they talk about the way they talk about people's bodies, or and even, as you say, sometimes that means even muting friends and family sometimes, just because you don't wholly agree in this particular aspect of the world. You don't agree with the way they go about things, or perhaps the way they talk about bodies or images or whatever. So I can see why anybody might feel like, oh goodness, is this a bit sensitive if I've got to kind of unfriend or unfollow people? But I think we're all doing what's right for our health and well-being, aren't we? And the more that we have help and support in being able to do this on a more national level, I think that would be such a huge leap forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is tough. It is tough to take that responsibility. But I think also the people or content that you mute or unfollow, they don't know that you've done that. And I think that's quite a conscious thing that you have to realise yourself. I remember feeling like, are they going to be offended if I don't follow that content anymore? But actually, they won't know. So it's really looking after yourself and putting yourself first.
Oh, wow. I have to say, my hat off to you for being sparked to do something via, the journey that somebody you knew and loved had been through. And I think to push the campaign as far forward as you have. And I'm just so pleased for you that you can now see the very thing that you were fighting for becoming part of a bigger picture narrative. And it feels like maybe it's getting some traction. And I hesitate to say maybe, because those of us that have been around eating disorders and body image stuff for a long time, we worry that this goes at a snail's pace and feel it should go a damn sight faster. But every one of these little things will help, without a doubt it will. What's the big ask for you as of today? So anybody out there listening to this who's either been through an eating disorder, is supporting someone with an eating disorder, or has ever been drawn into those thoughts about body image, what can they do to join your campaign, be on the same bus with you, and help us see this through?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, we're trying to get as many signatures as we possibly can. So you can pretty much put the hashtag in any social media channel and you'll find us. It's hashtag Honesty About Editing. Or you can follow us on our social media channels, which is Instagram at Protect Youth Mental Health, and Twitter at Suzanne Samaka. But like I say, at the moment, it's just a case of trying to get as much public weight and support behind this as possible. We are seeing Parliament talking about this for the first time, and I really want to keep that momentum to, like you say, get things changed. Parliament is a bit of a mess, to say the least, at the moment. But I think actually collaboration and the people who aren't in Parliament are the game changers. The people in Parliament are the ones who are just talking about it and can actually change things. But I think the people that are campaigning and doing things like you do, there's so many of us trying to make a change. And I think the louder and more we talk about it, the more likely something has to happen.
So true, and something that, you know, I echo that. We talk a lot about the collaborative voice in this space. There's no point in us all fighting as, you know, little minnows in the pond. It's all kind of, let's bring everybody together, and my goodness, we're a mighty force, you know, a really big voice if we can all kind of really pull that strength of feeling together and the lived experience. And I think, again, I go back to just where your experiences with a family member, my experiences as somebody who's been through it, those experiences are equally as important as an MP, as a GP, as, you know, anybody that's kind of come around that parliamentary table to make these decisions. We all have a voice in this. We all have a part to play. And whether you write a letter to an MP, whether you put the hashtag in and put a post out on your social media today, or whether you just personally audit all your own social media channels and decide to live your life in a better way that isn't so drawn in by this sort of unhealthy approach to sort of edited images, I think we can all make those small changes, and we can encourage our friends and family and our colleagues to do exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is a level of responsibility for family members or people that are suffering to take on, but I think there's absolutely people that need to be supporting them at the same time, and that's what I'm fighting for.
Oh, well, it's amazing work that you're doing. It really, really is. I'll tell you what I'd love to do, Suzanne, is catch up with you really regularly and see how the campaign's going, and see if there are other things that we can do together. I have this sense that there's some more work we could be doing directly. You know, Wednesday's Child, we go into schools and we talk about eating disorders, and I'd love to get you more involved in particularly coming in and chatting to some sixth form levels and saying, you know, this is where you start to kind of stand up and be counted as young adults. Let your local MPs know that this isn't good enough. You're not going to let this pass. And maybe if we've got a new Prime Minister in, maybe now's as good a time as any to start saying, actually, yeah, let's make some changes here. This is what we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, I love to talk about this, and I'm somebody that will talk forever. So absolutely, at all levels, I'd love to be involved in any way I can be.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Suzanne. What we're going to do is we're going to put in the show notes your various social media links and hashtags so that people can get in touch with you directly. And as I say, in a few months' time, I think we'll catch up again. And maybe we'll also,
yeah, definitely.
If anybody's interested in doing a live webinar and asking Suzanne a little bit more about the work she's been doing, we'd be happy to host that on Wednesday's Child. So if you email us at hello@wednesdayschchild.co.uk and just put Suzanne's kind of information in the subject box, we will set that aside. And if there's a good number of you that would like to hear a little bit more from Suzanne, we'll do a bit more of a one-to-one with you over a live webinar. So that'd be great fun. Thanks again, Suzanne.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for listening to the latest podcast episode of Wednesday's Child. We'll be back really soon. As ever, take care of yourself, look after your recovery, and remember, there is life beyond.